One of the most common large birds of prey is the osprey. Rick Greenspun, one of Florida's premier bird guides, gave a presentation on the osprey at Audubon. This is the Florida Field Journal.
Okay, introducing our speaker this evening, Rick Greenspun. Rick has been living and birding in Florida for the past 40 years. He served as board member of Sarasota Audubon as vice president, day trip coordinator, and program director. He has taught bird identification classes for Sarasota Audubon as well as the University of Florida's continuing adult education series. He has also led numerous field trips for us and for Manatee Audubon and for Rhodes Scholars. He is the owner and operator of his own bird guiding and photography business, where he runs trips to Ecuador, Costa Rica, New Mexico, Jamaica, Texas, and etc., and soon to be Colombia. If you have never been on any of Rick's trips, I encourage you to do so. He is the gold standard among trip leaders. And without further ado, here is Rick.
I'm supposed to give a presentation after that? Hard to beat, hard to beat. First of all, let me make a small disclaimer. I am by no way an expert birder, though I'm knowledgeable. I'm not trained professionally, nor do I have a degree in ornithology from any college. However, I am what I like to refer to myself, and those of you that know me know I like to make up a lot of terms on my own, especially when it comes to birds. Instead of a brown-headed nuthatch, I'll say brown-headed nutjob. So those that know me know what I'm talking about. So I like to call myself an ornithusiologist. Now, an ornithusiologist is someone who really, really likes birds and is so enthused that he wants to learn everything he can about them. So most of all the information I've gleaned over the past 40 years about birds has been really on the backs of real researchers and ornithologists who spend thousands and thousands of hours in the field amassing all this information that's available to all of us as it is to me. So in that respect, if I make any mistakes, you can either blurt it out or wait till the end. Tonight is going to be a little departure for me on presentations. Usually I'm showing pictures, 100, 150 slides of all sorts of different birds, either exotic or domestic birds of different beautiful colors. Well, tonight we're only going to talk about one bird, and that bird is the osprey. The reason I like the osprey so much is it's extremely original. In fact, it's so original and so different from other species that it was given its own family, Pandion. Now, Pandion haliaetus is the Latin term for the osprey. I wish that it would have been named differently, because scientifically, you look for scientific names. Pandion is actually named after a mythical Greek king who was so worried about his daughter's philandering that he was turned into a bird so he could hover over her constantly to keep an eye on her. So how's that for a scientific beginning? Haliaetus means sea eagle, which is a bit of a misnomer as it applies to a osprey, in that ospreys don't live in the sea, and they're certainly not related to eagles. But because it has so many different features that are original to it, apart from any other raptor, it's been put in its own family. The osprey is very cosmopolitan in that it's found on every single continent in the world except Antarctica. Females are larger than males, as most raptor species are. Most raptor species, the female is the bigger of the two. Sexually dimorphic in that it has different markings, but to a very, very slight degree. Extremely hard to tell apart in the air. When they're breeding, very easy to tell who the male and who the female is. And we'll go over some of the field marks. Females have more of a mottling on the underside. You notice this female has a slight, what they call a necklace. Not always discernible in the field, and it's very variable. Some of them are very heavy, some of them are very light. Females are much darker on the undertail coverts than the males are, and the males are much larger, and the bird itself is a bit larger. Average wingspan is 63 inches, which is considerably smaller than our bald eagle. Many people that see ospreys from a distance confuse the osprey with an eagle because they're seeing the dorsal side, which is the top view. And when you're only seeing the top view, you see a white head and a brown body, which can confuse you with an eagle. One of the discerning spots of IDing an osprey in the air is this wing wrist. Okay? We're going to discuss the importance of that wing structure a little later on in the show. But when it's flying in the air, this is almost always exhibited. Anyway, this is a male. And we'll toggle back and forth. You can see the breast is clean, no necklace. Necklace there. Little lighter on the under wing coverts, especially near the leading edge. That's compared to the female. You can see how dark it is on top. Other than that, like I said, very hard to tell the difference between the two in the air. Now, what makes an osprey so different that it's given its own classification is you notice the talons. The talons are completely smooth and rounded, and the osprey is the only diurnal osprey to have completely rounded talons, other than grooved. Most raptors have grooved talons in the back of their talons. The only other raptors that have that type of talons are owls. It also has toes of equal length, and you'll notice the scaly nature of the skin on the legs and on the feet. These are almost like scales called spicules. And these spicules are like the end of a file or a rasp. And they're very rough, and they ensure that the osprey has a firm grasp on the fish after it grabs it. The other thing that makes it unusual compared to other raptors is this outer toe is reversible posteriorly. It means it can turn to the back. So when the osprey grabs a fish, he can have two talons forward and two talons back on either side of the fish's spine to facilitate carrying it. Another copy of another shot of a female, just showing the minor breastband here and the large bill, and a shot of a male. Now, most of the shots of the male and the females are of a specific couple called Oscar and Olivia. And I had a friend on Siesta Key who had an osprey at the end of her dock. And I was invited to visit this osprey on occasion. And she subsequently named all the birds, including the juveniles. So this is Oscar, and this was Olivia. And this is the top of the nest platform. So here again you can see the wing wrist, the long tapered wings. There you go, there's the difference. You can see that straight edge, you can see that wing wrist. So those of you who see birds from a long way off and are not sure if you're looking at an eagle or an osprey, even without seeing colors closely, if you look for this bend in the wing wrist, and when it flies completely different from an eagle as well. So it's something to look for, that straight edge. Of course, this is an adult bald eagle carrying a fish, and the interesting thing is you notice the way he's carrying the fish. He's got 3 talons forward and 1 back. Now that's usual for a raptor. As an osprey, and we'll see pictures later on, discussing their hunting technique, where you'll see that outer talon and outer toe reverse so they can carry it better. Okay, this is an osprey hovering. Now, when ospreys breed, and we're going to talk about nesting and breeding later on too, they hover almost like they do during when they're hunting. Males will go up to between 60 and 100 feet in the air and either carrying nesting material of fish or just screaming incessantly for a female to attract a female. This is an osprey over at the celery fields off of Raymond Road, and he's in a hunting mode. Now, ospreys are only one of two raptors that can hover, like a kingfisher or like a hummingbird. There's other birds that can stay motionless in the sky, but that is different. That's called kiting. And kiting is when a bird turns into the wind, and the wind holds the bird up. But even if the osprey is not into the wind, which it normally does, it can hover for quite a long period of time. So the osprey will hover anywhere between 40 to 60 feet up in the air. He's looking at water that needs a little bit of clarity to it within at least 18 inches so he can see in the water. It's the only raptor that plunge dives for its food in water. Now, eagles can swoop down and get prey off the surface of the water, but you'll never see an eagle plunge dive, pretty much the way terns do at the beach. Ospreys can submerge up to 18 inches under the water, and they have almost a 3-foot reach once their legs are extended. So this osprey is hovering. I've noticed that they always have their talons tucked in when they're hovering. I don't know why that is, why they don't just keep them dangling, but this is a backstroke, and then he's still hovering. You notice the intent, eye contact with the water. It's amazing to think that this bird is tracking a fish that's at least 18 inches or maybe less under the water and having to account for the refraction of where that fish is while it's moving, while he's 40 feet up in the air. Just another shot of him hovering. Okay, so he sees a fish, and you'll notice throughout this series that the head does not move. You can see the wings are starting to sweep back. You can't see it, but the feet are starting to trail. So everything is completely aerodynamic. Now, ospreys will dive anywhere between completely vertical and 45-degree angle. From anywhere between 60 and 100 feet. Once they hit the water, they're going about 40 miles an hour. When they extend the legs, they completely submerge up to 3 feet. So you see that the head is still in the exact same position. Wings are swept farther back. Now he's starting to rotate his rear end forward without moving the head or the neck position. And this is the moment of truth. Look at the talons are spread wide open. His head remains completely the same angle it has through the whole trip. Wings are swept back. The whole angle is a perfect 45-degree angle. And then splash. Now, two adaptations that the osprey has here is you notice the eye. You notice how cloudy it is? Well, almost all birds have this. It's called the nictitating membrane. And it's kind of like a clear eyelid. It still allows the bird some vision, but it protects it from debris and obviously water. The other thing is osprey is one of the few raptors, if not the only raptor, that can close its nostrils. Now, if anybody's ever jumped up from the high dive into the water without pinching their nose closed, you'll know why that's very important, because you get water shot right up your nose, especially going 40 miles an hour. This is where those wing rests, those real bent wings, come in handy and are extremely important for the osprey. This bird, even though it has a thick preen gland that waterproofs its feathers, is picking up a fish, and you'll see it in a second. It's probably 3/4 of the weight of the bird, and it's probably got a pound of water on it before it shakes the water off. So the first stroke that this bird makes is not a full wing flap like you would see an eagle do, but that top part of the wing, where the wing wrist, propels it out of the water, almost straight up like a duck. Have you ever seen a duck take up out of the water? They almost go straight up. They're also very buoyant because of the preen oil, so that helps them get some oomph coming out of the water. This bird's coming up basically at a 45-degree angle, almost the same angle he went in. Now look at that fish, unbelievable. Now I read somewhere where the record fish of an osprey was 2.5 pounds. I don't know how they figured that out unless he dropped it and someone went and weighed it. It's one of those pieces of information that you have to take with a grain of salt, because how many times have someone seen an osprey catch a big fish and then able to weigh it? But I venture to say that this fish weighs more than 2 pounds. I don't know what kind of fish it is, but it's pretty big. I believe this is a male, and this particular bird is different from the one that dove into the water. This was taken out at Siesta Key, and this bird flew for about 300 yards, about 6 inches off the ground, because this bird was so heavy. This fish was so heavy. So once they get up in the air, they will shake their whole body almost like a dog does to shed water. Amazing, amazing. Okay, this is a perfect example of an osprey carrying a fish, and I believe this is a shad. I think I know this much. You notice that the 2 talons in the back of the fish, there's only 2 talons showing on our side, and on the back side there are 2 more. And that's that opposable digit that can turn posteriorly to help it align this fish so it's aerodynamic. That's why they carry it like this, to make it more aerodynamic. Now this is a show-off. He's doing it one-handed. I don't know if that's because he just doesn't have a grip on it yet, but he had no trouble carrying that off with just one side of his foot working. So when ospreys are ready to breed, the male will do that dance similar to the hovering that he does when he's fishing. And he will carry some nesting material or a fish or whatever, and he will first establish the territory of the nesting site. Ospreys mate for life, though I think with eagles as well, it's more of nest site fidelity. So they know where their nest was from the year before, and the males usually show up first to recapture that territory. Sometimes there are remnants of the nest still left if it's an osprey platform, and they will start to refurbish it. But basically the male will start bringing in nesting material and displaying for the female. Sticks and Spanish moss are a favorite item. I was fortunate enough to get a call from Channel 7 last breeding season. They had a pair of ospreys that nested on their tower, and they put a bird cam up there, so we were able to watch it daily. And not only did the osprey bring in basically sticks and Spanish moss, but there were construction flags, tar paper, fishing nets, a kite, part of a spare tire. So just about anything. It's reminiscent of some of the Asian birds, like the bowerbirds, that bring in presents for their spouses. So I don't know if that's the deal or he's just bored while she's incubating eggs, but basically it's Spanish moss and sticks. So if she's receptive, very quick, but watch this end. Ooh. So we know she was receptive. Not in every situation does copulation ensure that there is a fertilized egg. Now, Males will do what I call, and I don't know if this is the correct term, false copulation. They will copulate with females when she is not receptive. But that kind of behavior, along with bringing nesting material and him dancing for her, will cause her hormones to start producing eggs. She will start to ovulate. The rest of the year, the sexual components of both the male and female shrink up and they're not used whatsoever. But during this time, she becomes fertile, and if she accepts his gifts of fish and sticks and tar paper, they will raise a brood. Now this is Olivia on the Siesta Key site, and she basically had just sticks and Spanish moss. There was no good stuff about it. Once they lay eggs, and even while they're raising chicks, the male continues to bring in new material. And just like most of us at home, the female's constantly rearranging the furniture for whatever reason. She'll pick this stick up, and she moved this stick a half a dozen times before she found the perfect spot. And the next day I came, it was gone again. So it's hard to tell what they're doing, but you can see these chicks are pretty well along. So normally, if we're very successful and we have a male who's very fertile and a female who's also fertile, we get 3 eggs for the most part, and she'll stop laying after 3 eggs. It's very important that she keeps her body in a downward tilt while they're copulating, because the sperm has to travel all the way up the fallopian tube to fertilize these eggs as soon as they come into the oviduct. And the reason being is it takes about 24 to 30 hours for an egg to be made. And the first step in that egg process is the yolk. And the yolk is where the chick will start to develop and will be its major food source for the next 35 to 40 days. The next step down the oviduct is where the albumin comes, the white. And that also acts as a cushion in the egg to cushion both the yolk and the young, and also provides nutrients as well. And then the real miracle comes further down, is when the egg, the shell itself, wraps around this gooey mess, and the pigment is applied like a paint job. It's a process Henry Ford would have approved of. I mean, it's an amazing. So she will start incubating immediately. Now, these eggs will hatch asynchronously, which means the first one to be laid, if it's fertile, will be the first one to hatch. And the first one to hatch is always has the advantage over his siblings who come later. Now, in this instance, only 1 egg was fertile. But she let the eggs stay in there until the chick hatched, and then mysteriously the eggs disappeared. I don't know if something else took them or if she disposed of them, or maybe even ate them. I don't know. So these chicks are about 3 days old, and you notice how bumpy they are on the front. They've got a little bit of fuzz on the head and on the back, but they're pretty much bald here. Now, birds are born 2 ways. 8 trickle, which are totally bald, totally naked and blind at birth, and totally dependent on their parents. Or precocial, like ducks. When ducks are born, they come out of the egg and they go right in the water. And though they stay with the family for a period of time, they're able to feed themselves immediately upon birth. Well, ospreys are halfway in between. The term is called semi-precocial. They're born with natal down, just a little fuzz. Their eyes are wide open, and within an hour, they're extending their necks up to be fed from the female. Now, at this point, they don't grab the food from the female. She brings the food to them. But I would venture to guess that this is the first guy born. Now, until the first chick is sated, until he's full, until he's eaten all he can eat, no one else will get fed. The female does not go to each individual bird like passerines do to feed each one until this guy's had his full. if someone tries to butt in, he could be in a lot of trouble if he's aggressive enough. The important thing in birds is they develop a crop after about 10 days. Now, a crop is a little sac off their esophagus that allows them to store food in there. So that's not only important for adult birds, but it's important for bird number 2 and bird number 3, because the more full this little guy is, the first one born, the more chance they have to eat. Unfortunately, with all birds, between 50 and 70% of birds never make it past the first year. Some of them don't know how to hunt properly, some of them get injured. Birds get a lot of diseases, so that's why there's a lot of birds out there, because it takes a lot of birds to populate. So that's it. Like I said, most of the information that I got were from a lot of great places like Cornell. One of the best places, the University of Toronto. Some young intern did a paper on ospreys and had some fantastic references. Julie Schroeder is from Osprey and provided the video of the ospreys breeding. Thank you.